So this, hopefully, I think, I'm using After Effects on my computer, but you guys are streaming into it. If you look, I have both in the announcements and I believe as a page now um, on maybe week 2 module. The same thing. It's just how to get into the streaming idea of Adobe After Effects. The link to the page, and then logging in with you. Always remember your student email and your student password. That's the only way you'll get in, because I've given IT your student ID number and your name, and that's why you're able to get into the Adobe streaming products. And the only one we're going to deal with in this class is Adobe After Effects. So this is Adobe After Effects. I think when you first open it up, and I'm going to make what's called a new project over here. I'm going to click it and see where it says Untitled Project. I'm going to go just File, Save, or Save As, just to name it. And you can put it wherever. I'm just going to call it, and this is just the project file. This is the file where you're doing all the stuff inside After Effects. I'm going to call it text move, and see the .aep. That stands for After Effects project file. So that's the kind of file type it is. And I'm going to put it. You can put it on the desktop or wherever, and then save it. Okay. And hopefully the streaming version will allow you to do that. So this is the Adobe interface, and all the interface means is, hey, when you open this thing up at the beginning, what are all these different parts? What are all these different parts to it? Okay. Now, this is the project, and what we're going to do is we're going to build what are called compositions. All a composition is a timeline. It starts at 0 and it goes up till whenever you want to stop it. Usually in this class we'll do 5 seconds or 10 seconds. We'll do really quick little timelines, because all of our animations will not be that lengthy until maybe at the end of the quarter. So notice it wants us to new composition, or open up a new composition. We're going to do a new composition. And you can also go up to the word composition up here and say new composition. And then I'm going to name it. See where it says composition name? I'm going to name it text move. Okay. And I want to make sure it's 1920 by 1080. So the preset I like to do is HD TV 1080 29.97. And it has all these different presets for YouTube and for the internet, whatever. And we're always going to do 1920 by 1080 in this class. That's HD size, and that's 1920 pixels wide by 1080 pixels high. And we're always going to do a frame rate of 29.97. Now I like that. Some people go lower, like 24, but I like to go 29.97. That's the video rate, and it means it's 29.97 frames a second. So it's a higher frame rate, which means typically animation looks smoother with more frame rate. Now, do you want to go above that? No. Okay. So, if you're thinking that way, stop. But we're always going to do HDTV 1080 29.97. Okay? Now, you can do a background color. That does not mean when you export it that the background color is going to show up. And it's funky that it does that. But let's start with let me start with white for background color. Now it's weird. Again, you think, oh, it's going to be when I make a movie and I'm done in After Effects, we're going to export it as a movie. And just because you've chosen a background color, it won't show up. I'll show you how to do that. So again, this is the HDTV square pixels 29.97. We're going to see the duration here. It's going to start at 0, and let's do, instead of 15 seconds, let's do 10 seconds. So it's at the end, it's 10 and then a semicolon 00. And I like to keep all this stuff and just change a few things. So our timeline is going to be 10 seconds long. Okay, so duration right there. And then when you say OK, there it is. And notice that if this area here, hopefully you can see that, it goes from 0 to 10s, and the S stands for seconds. So we have a timeline that's 10 seconds long, and this little blue thing I'm grabbing is called the scrubber. Okay, and that'll be important later on. So again, even though our thing has a white background, our composition, in reality, when we export it, it's not there. So we're going to actually make a solid layer of just white. Okay. So see where it says 67.7 here, if you can see that. This is how zoomed out we are. See, I'm at 25%, and you can see I like to, this white area is the composition area, so anything in this area will show up in your movie. Anything outside this area that's not in the white will not show up. Now a lot of times you want to start things off your area and then make it move in, or start it inside and then make it move out. Okay? So that's this area outside of it is kind of important too. All right, so I'm going to go to, let me go to 50%, or I'll go to 33. All right? So again, the scrubber area is, we're going to set little dots. So when the movie plays, if I press the space bar, see how the thing's moving? Here, it's actually playing my movie at 29.97 frames a second. But what we'll do is we're going to set little dots, so when the scrubber area hits something, whatever's on that layer that has that dot, the computer will make sure that that thing, that object or text or whatever, it moves to that location when the little scrubber hits the little dot. So we'll set little dots along this timeline here and move objects around in our composition area. Okay? All right. So the main tools here are right here, and there's really 2 or 3, right? This one, you see this little triangle here that's blue? If you mouse over it, it says selection tool. So when I make something, if I want to grab it and move it around, I have to grab my selection tool to do it, okay? And the only tools we're going to use right now is the text tool and the selection tool. So I'm going to go grab my text tool, and before I do anything, all I'm going to do is click. And now see how I have a vertical line here? What that means is I can type out some text. Now right now, my text over here, if you have this is a panel that's open up, and if you go to Window, see all the check marks here? These are all the different panels that are open. And see that Tools is open, and Paragraph is open, and Character is open. Character and Paragraph, it has to do with text, basically. So this is the character, and it says that when I type it, it's going to be 138 pixels high, and it's going to be white. Well, we have a white background, at least we kind of do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to click on the square and make it like a darker blue. Okay? And see how it changed that? And then when I click, sorry, I need to, okay? So it typed out this color, and it typed out this size. Now the first thing I'm going to do is, before I do anything, is once I typed out what I want my text to do, I can also highlight this and change this around, okay? And that's fine, but I can also do it by grabbing the selection tool. And watch, when I grab the selection tool, right now I have the text tool on. When I grab the selection tool, it has this weird, these weird red dots around it. And I can actually change it now. Okay, and I might change the size of it like that. And then with the selection tool, I can move it into place. Now, let me zoom in a little bit. and move this thing. You see this thing right here, this little like crosshair thing right here? That's the access point. So if let me, just a second here. See how it's rotating on that access point? Okay, and most of the time that's not what you want, typically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this a couple of different ways to get it in the middle of the text. And how I do that is I'm going to go to layer. There's a couple different ways, but I like to do this. So it's going to talk to this layer that I have of text. I'm going to say layer transform and then center anchor point in layer content. So it's layer transform center anchor point in layer content. And whatever's in that layer, watch, it moves the anchor point to the middle. Now I can also do it this way. Do you see this other little tool? It says pan behind tool when I mouse over it. Pan behind anchor point tool. When I click on it, it allows me to move this thing. Now sometimes you can't get it exactly in the middle. So I like to grab my selection tool. Again, go to layer, go to transform, and go to center anchor point and let the computer do it. Okay, and now when I rotate it, see how it's rotating in the middle? And that becomes the access point for that object. All right, so now what we're going to do is, let me zoom out here. Again, here's now you can also use your mouse. See how I can kind of zoom out here? I want to see some of the empty space around the white area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my scrubber at the beginning, okay? And I'm going to move my text out. See how I can't see it? But you can still see it because of the, let me zoom out here a little bit. But I can still mess with it because I can tell where it is because of the red little dots and the access point in the middle. I'm going to start my text there, and notice my scrubber is at 0. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my layer here and press the letter P for position. And when I do that, see how the position comes up? And it has sort of a little stopwatch next to it. What that means is that little stopwatch is, hey, we're going to set a keyframe, little dots, and I have to turn this on to set the first one. So I'm going to click this little keyframe, and notice it put, if you can see it, notice it put a little blue dot here. And here's the X and Y value of that little blue dot. It's 548 minus 548, that's on the X, and 502 on the Y. Okay? So I want it to start there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my scrubber a little bit. And then watch. I've already set this little clock. So anytime I move this object and move the scrubber a little bit, it's going to, by its own, it's going to set a new keyframe where the scrubber is. So I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to move my object. And see that little line? So it's going to move it from here to here. Okay? And it has two little dots. Now if I go back, I can grab the scrubber, see how it's moving it? Okay, and all we're doing is we're setting keyframes to change the position of where our text is on the timeline. So when it plays our movie, it'll make sure this thing's here because there's a dot here, and then it'll figure out, okay, to get from this dot to this dot in this so much time, this is how fast I have to move the text, basically. Now I can grab this little dot and move it down, and it'll go slower because it's going to take more time. It has more time to go from this dot to this dot. All right, and that's a keyframe. Now what I want you to do is just kind of mess around here. Now watch, I'm going to move this and move the text. And all I'm doing is setting multiple keyframes and letting the computer do the work for me. So I'm going to move down here a little bit. And if you want to keep things in the same place, this is important. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I have this moving here, and I want this to sit when it gets to here, I want it to sit for a couple seconds. So I'm going to move the scrubber a little bit. Now watch. I can either go like this. I can go like this and copy it. Or actually, sorry. I can go like this and go on a Mac, go Command C or Control C. So it's going to copy that little dot. And then I can go Command V or Control V and paste it. And what it did was it just copied that location. See how the thing doesn't move? Or let me or I can go down here, go past this little dot however long, and I can change this a little bit, and I can press at the left side here of the layer under position. You see this little diamond shape and it's not highlighted? I can click it and it instantly puts a keyframe, so I can do it the same way. You can copy and paste it, or you can move it a little bit and press this little icon here to get a keyframe made for you. And that way it stays in one place. And I can go down here and move it so it'll stay. This way it'll move and then stay a little bit and then move. Okay? All right, so that's kind of all I want you to do, is just get a handle on that, okay? Now this is new. Be patient and kind to yourselves as you're using this. But let's see how you do. So